We were never meant to work to earn our rest. We were meant to work from our place of rest, because then we are no longer pouring out into people from our emptiness, but we're pouring out into people from the fullness of what God has poured into us. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Saundra Dalton-Smith. I'm the author of the book Sacred Rest: Recover Your Life, Renew Your Energy, Restore Your Sanity. I'm a board-certified internal medicine physician, as well as a work-life integration researcher. And I've spent the past few years really diving deep into how do we rest better? How do we get to a place where we're able to live our busy lives and do all the things that we're due with our responsibilities, with family, and with our career, and do them effectively without getting burned out, without getting to a place that it loses its joy and its purpose, and we feel as if we are being pulled in all directions. Rest is not something we can just get to like that book on our shelf whenever we have time, when we feel like we need it. Because the problem is most of us are staying chronically fatigued, chronically tired, and we're in a position where we are working out of our exhaustion rather than working out of the fullness of all that we have to give. We're not fully being able to use our gifts and our talents and all that God's placed inside of us because we are always working out of that place of depletion. And that's what sacred rest is. It's taking that time to recognize that rest is needed. It's necessary if we want to be able to give our best selves to whatever area that we are serving, whether that's our family, whether that's in ministry, or if that's within our careers. To give of our best, we have to be able to take the time to intentionally rest well. My research has shown that there are 7 different types of rest, and those 7 types are physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, sensory, social, and creative. When you go to bed at night, if you're exhausted, and you wake up the next day and you're still exhausted, chances are it wasn't a physical rest deficit that was the problem. You likely have a rest deficit in one of these other types of rest that I mentioned. And so even with physical rest, it has 2 components: the passive, which are things like sleeping and napping, and then it has the active components, which are things like stretching or making sure that you're doing things that improve your circulation and your lymphatic drainage, like a leisure walk. Being able to make sure that your body doesn't stay in a stationary period for long periods of time. So if you can see, you have to change your mindset on what the word rest means. It is not simply the cessation of activity. It is not stopping. It is not simply sleeping. There are those things that you do to restore each of these 7 types of area. The next one would be mental rest. Mental rest looks like clearing out your headspace, allowing yourself to not always be ruminating over thoughts. If you've ever had that experience where you lay down at night and while you're in bed, it's like your head just will not shut up. It's going through all of the things that you've done that day and checking off your to-do list for the next day, but it won't get to that quiet space. That's what mental rest looks like. Learning how to quiet your mind so that you're not always full of all of these thoughts. I always like to meditate on a characteristic of God, or even a word that brings you back to think about who God is in your life. Peace, love, joy. Pick a word, a phrase that you will focus on as the way of calming your mind and keeping it from being able to just jump to whatever thought that it decides it wants to go to. The next type of rest would be emotional rest. Now, emotional rest deals with allowing yourself to be able to be very open and honest and truthful about what's going on with you. So if you're someone who has a tendency to keep your thoughts to yourself, you don't enjoy being very authentic or very forthcoming about how you're emotionally feeling and what's going on with you in your life, this may be a place where you have a bit of a rest deficit. Because the problem with emotional rest is if you're never allowing anyone to see what's going on with you, it starts making you feel that at the very core, there is something wrong with your beliefs. And it doesn't make you feel as if you're able to truthfully share yourself, all of yourself with others. I believe every one of us needs to have those people in our lives, whether it's a counselor or a therapist, a trusted friend, a family member, someone who knows at the very core of what's going on with you. Next is social rest. Social rest is the rest that allows us to experience the energy of being around other people. When we're young, we're high school, we're growing up in college, we have a lot of friends that we hang out with, people who don't necessarily need anything from us, but who we enjoy being around, those life givers. Then, as we get older, our responsibilities seem to come in and it pulls us away from those adult friends, and we tend to spend all of our time with people who are requiring things from us. Now, those people who are negatively pulling from your social energy does not mean they're negative people. These could be your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, your colleagues, your clients, anyone that you're working with may be requiring that social energy from you. And they're not negative people. It's just how are they pulling on your life? And so we all need those people in our lives that don't require anything from us, that we just enjoy being around. And we need to see the value in spending time with those people who can pour back into us. We can't always be the ones pouring out into others. The next type of rest is creative rest. This is one of my favorites because I think many of us have experienced creative rest without really even thinking about what it is or how it works. Creative rest is the rest we experience when we allow ourselves to appreciate beauty in whatever form, whether it's natural beauty like the beach or the mountains or the forest or flowers, or if it's man-made beauty like going to the art museum or listening to music. For many people, these are ways to restore that creative energy and those creative juices inside of us, and to awaken that and to allow us to get back to a place where we are feeling inspired and motivated and that creativity comes alive. The next type of rest is sensory rest. Now, with everything that's gone on over the past months, we're using our electronics and our gadgets more than ever. And it's caused a lot of us to experience sensory overload. We need to have some time away from it. We need time in silence. We need time that we just spend away from the notifications, where we're turning off some of these things that are keeping us feeling overwhelmed and drained, and allow us to get back to a place where it's okay to turn the TV off, to just sit in silence with God sometimes, and just to be present in the moment. And then that brings me to the final type of rest, which is spiritual rest. Spiritual rest is really not about religion. It's all about relationship. Spiritual rest is the rest we experience when we have intimacy with God, when we take time to break away just to be with him. We're not coming with our agenda. We're not coming with our prayer list. We're coming simply to just spend time in his presence and to enjoy being with him. It is a requirement that we each take time to rest. Not only is it important for yourself, but it's also important in what you're modeling if you have children. There's a large number of people coming up after us who are coming into a culture that teaches them that rest is not important. And we have built up a burnout generation that thinks it's okay to have their notifications on every time they get a text message. They think it's okay to be tired every day, that that's as good as it gets, that the best you can hope for is to live a life of complete exhaustion, day in and day out, working a job that you have no passion for, that you have no desire for, that you do not feel inspired or called to, feeling as if that is the norm. And I do not believe that's God's best for our life. I do not believe that is the abundant life that he talks about in John 10:10. I believe that abundant life is the life that is overflowing, that moves from a place of rest out into the workforce, out into the things that you are called to do. God's best for us is where we actually go back to the very beginning, and we do it as he has modeled, even from the very beginning of creation. We see that in day 6, man was created, and then God spoke into them, commissioned them, told them who their identity was, what they were to do. They were going to have dominion and subdue, and we see the pattern set in place on where man was beginning and that call into the workforce. And then we see the very next thing that happens is that they're placed into a day of rest. On the seventh day, God rested. Well, man was resting too, because there was no mention of the work actually beginning until after that seventh day. Many of us have it completely backwards. We live in a culture that says work, 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 and then after you finish the work, then you can rest. The work's never done. There will always be work. The Bible shows a very different way of working and resting. Spend time in God's presence. That day 6. Let him speak into you your identity, what you're called to, commission you to the work that you are to do. I'd like to conclude with an excerpt from Jesus Calling, May 12th. Many of my precious children have fallen prey to burnout. A better description of their condition might be drain out. Countless interactions with needy people have drained them without their conscious awareness. You are among these weary ones who are like wounded soldiers needing R&R. Take time to rest in the love light of my presence. I will gradually restore to you the energy that you have lost over the years. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and you will find rest for your souls.